Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
The song that you are currently listening to is called Holding Us Back. It's the penultimate track from the latest album by Patrick Dethlefs, Patty, which you can find wherever you get your music. Patrick Dethlefs will be performing at the Jamestown Mercantile very soon, so be sure to head over to 108 Main Street in Jamestown on Thursday, November 20th, 2025, starting at 7 p.m. to see him performing live. For more information about his music, be sure to head to his website at patrickdethlefs.com.
To all the ones we left behind. So sorry to say we've gone too far.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Jamie Lammers, and this is Music of the Mountains, Where to Be and What to See, brought to you by the Mountaineer Podcast. I'm sure you've noticed some structural and editorial changes to the Mountaineer Podcast over the last couple of segments, particularly with great new segments brought to you by our newest team member, Tyler Hickman, and a hopefully more consistent podcast episode schedule. We're going to be implementing those changes more over the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to work to bring you a regular music segment every Friday morning, precisely at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. I'm also going to edit the questions I asked during the initial interview in the final edit, instead of recording the questions again after the fact. Leaving the questions in how I originally asked them feels slightly vulnerable, because I've gotten used to stuttering slightly more over the last few years, as I've realized I can fix the questions in the final edit. However, I want the stories to keep flowing, and I want to find a more efficient process for editing the episodes as a whole. So I will not be jumping in after the fact very often in the next few episodes. Before I let Interview Jamie completely take over, if you haven't subscribed to the Mountaineer and you want to support local news from peak to peak, be sure to head to the mtnear.com and click on the subscribe button in the top right corner of our homepage. From there, you'll get full access to our digital archives and scanned copies of our physical newspaper. And you can choose to send a physical subscription to your mailbox or to the mailbox of someone that you love. If you're interested in being involved in the paper or the podcast directly, or you have any questions for our staff members, you can email our editor-in-chief, Barbara Hart, at info@themountaineer.com, myself at media@themountaineer.com, or frontdesk@themountaineer.com. Or you can call us directly at 303-810-5409. And now, without any further ado, let's just jump right into our first guest in today's double feature of Music of the Mountains, Where to Be and What to See, brought to you by the Mountaineer Podcast. This interview was recorded on October 12th.
So, do you mind just introducing yourself real quick?
Yeah, my name is Patrick Dethlefs. I'm a singer-songwriter, folk musician based out of Denver, Colorado.
And you'll be coming to the Peak to Peak area very soon for Jamestown Merc performance.
I'm coming up there actually 10/22, I guess Wednesday the 22nd of this month at the Gold Hill Inn, and that'll be a free show on a Wednesday night. And then I'll also be up at the Jamestown Mercantile, I believe, on November 20th, and that's also a free one too.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Do you mind just telling us about how you got started in music in the first place, how you developed music over the years, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I grew up kind of in a musical household. Not everyone played instruments, but everyone loved music. My dad, he played acoustic guitar and wrote songs and just loved music and kind of exposed me to that at a pretty early age. And I think I was 12 years old. I got my first guitar, and I had a neighborhood friend. He got a bass guitar, and he had it for a little bit. And he's like, "You should get an electric guitar and we'll start a pop punk band." And I got the electric guitar. We never started the band. But yeah, I was interested in that type of music, and also, like classic rock and guitar gods like Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page and whatnot. And, grew up, my dad would take me to like Allman Brothers shows at Red Rocks, and I was enamored by Derek Trucks playing slide guitar. So I kind of started in that and went through several different phases of different genres of music that I was really interested in. And I think I started writing songs and then just kind of kept coming back to that being the thing that I put my focus in, and it's kind of landed where it has.
I assume you've also been writing songs for a lot of that time. How have you developed your songwriting over the years as well?
Yeah, I have been writing songs for a long time. I started writing them. I don't think I was like a big learner of other people's songs, even in the beginning. Like first getting the guitar, I think I just learned chords and put them together in a different way. And then shortly after started writing songs, and I remember, I think being in, middle school writing songs and not really keeping any of them until later in high school, maybe when I was like, oh, I feel like these are maybe good enough to keep. I'm not too embarrassed by them. But it's definitely changed over the years. In some ways, it's the exact same. The way I approach it is usually I'll just be playing around on my guitar, and then I'll maybe find a melody and start kind of humming that over what I'm playing, and then some random words will fall out, and I'll kind of go from there. I definitely think when I'm in the mode of songwriting, my ears are perked, and I'm listening to what other people say and thinking, oh, that could be a line, or I could steal that and put that in a song. But I think I've become a little more open as I have done it more to whatever comes, I'll try and work on, and also being okay with having, I guess, dry spells or periods where I'm not writing. I think that used to freak me out a lot and kind of make me get in my head about it, but I've come to realize that maybe that's part of the process, and it's okay to have that. And then I have moments where all I'm doing is writing songs.
And in terms of performances as well, do you primarily perform solo? Do you perform with other people every once in a while? Like, how do you usually perform in terms of?
It varies. I do play solo a fair amount, but I also have up to a full, including myself, a 5-piece band, so 4 other people on stage with drums, keys, another guitar and bass, and a couple of those people singing. And then it's pretty malleable. I like it because I'll, can play as a duo, play solo, big band, or trio. I believe the one at Gold Hill will be a trio, and hoping that'll bring some people along for the Jamestown one as well. I like it all, but it is fun to have people up there with you.
For sure. And what has stuck out to you in performing here, just about the Colorado music scene in general? What have you loved about playing here?
I think that I grew up here. I grew up in a town called Kittredge, which is right near Evergreen, Colorado. And I was, in high school kind of drawn into the Denver music scene, and I think it goes further out into the rest of Colorado. But it is cool because I think that everyone is so willing to help each other out. And you see a lot of people playing in one band, also playing in the next band, which I think is really cool. And I think there's some great songwriters here. There's been so many times in my life where I've gone to a house show or something like that and been just blown away by the songs I've heard. I remember in high school, I think there was a period where I was almost mostly listening to local music, my friends, and I was like, they're my favorite songwriters. So that's really cool. And then I think, there's some really unique spots in Colorado to play. And the two that we've talked about in this interview of Gold Hill and Jamestown, those are some of my favorite spots to play. They're definitely, I guess, unique in the traditional venue sense, but it is just going up to Gold Hill, it feels like you're stepping back in time. And then Jamestown, I've been playing there so long, I know most of the people in the town, and it's just, the food's always good. Everyone's really supportive. And I think everyone that I play with too always looks forward to playing those places too, because they feel the exact same thing.
Is there anything in general that you love about being able to perform in general wherever you end up performing?
Yeah, I think I do really like playing live, and I'd like to do as much of it as I can. I think it's, playing these songs that I worked on for a bit. And, even going to see a show, I like the uniqueness of seeing a song played live, where I don't feel like I'm far off with how a song was recorded, but I do think that there's a way that someone, uses an inflection on their voice, a certain word, they sing it a little different. And I don't know, I think it really brings me into the moment because I'm focusing on trying to play the songs the best I can and get whatever across. And I do just like the greater idea of performing of there's the artist or the band and then there's the audience and everyone's giving something to make something a little bit bigger than themselves.
For sure. And what do you hope people will take away from your music, your shows, what have you, when they come to see you perform?
Yeah, well, I hope that they like it enough to go listen to it again, on their own in their car or something like that. And I hope maybe they can find a line or two in a song that they connect with. Yeah.
Sweet. And yeah, I don't know, are there any other projects that you are working on at the moment or any other musical things coming up for you or anything else you want to make sure you talk about?
Yeah, I think right now I'm just trying to spread the good word of I just put out a record about, I think it was a month ago exactly, this last week, but it's called Patty, and it's kind of a play on a self-titled record. I have a bunch of people in my life who, my mom included, who call me Patty. But I just put out this new record, and we recorded it completely live in a room, so I do feel like it's as close as you can get to sitting in the room with us while we were recording it. And I'm really proud of all the songs on it and the performances, and, we obviously cared about making it good, but we weren't too worried about little imperfections. And in some ways, I don't know, we just wanted to take a picture of these few days. And I think we did that. So I hope people will listen to that. And I hope to start playing those songs more and more live.
Yeah, I don't know. I think those are the big questions that I have on my end.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. Patrick Dethlefs will be performing at the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown, on Thursday, November 20th, 2025, starting at 7 p.m. To learn more about Patrick's music, be sure to head to his website at patrickdethlefs.com. And now, to jump into our second interview. I've been working to schedule an interview with this musician for over a year. This musician was last week's featured artist in Music of the Mountains, but his show is still upcoming. This interview was originally recorded on October 28th. Do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
My name is Joel Van Horne, and my musical moniker is Covenhoven.
And you will be coming to perform at the Gold Hill Inn very soon?
Yeah, November 16th, Sunday, November 16th.
Sweet. Yeah, so I think the big thing that I want to talk about first is how did you get started in music in the first place, and how did that build up to Covenhoven today?
Sure. I mean, that's kind of a long story, but I started when I was young. I loved playing piano as a kid. Got my hands on a guitar around 11, and my dad was always playing his songs and Bob Dylan songs around the house. He was a guitar player, songwriter, and same with the rest of my family. Everybody was dabbling in music. We had a big upright grand piano in the living room. I would sit there and write little ideas and things like that. So I ended up getting an electric guitar kind of right before high school, joined a band once I found my people in high school, which actually happened pretty quickly. Started writing songs and touring and just really fell in love with music and the idea of creating songs that didn't exist the day before or the moments before. And that just slowly evolved over time. Let's just fast forward through several projects. Probably many albums later, I ended up going solo, as it were, and that became the Covenhoven project. And I kind of haven't looked back since. That's been over a decade now that I've been doing that. And it's been a real joy. It's been a fun and, let's say, varied ride and journey through music. So.
For sure. And so was there a particular starting place for Covenhoven as a stage name for your solo performances? How did that kind of build?
Yeah, so Covenhoven's the name of the cabin that my grandfather built in southern Wyoming. My dad gave it that name before I was born, and so I've always known that place as Covenhoven, and I grew up going there every summer. It was just a centerpiece of my childhood, and when I was trying to come up with ideas for names or if I was going to go with my own name, etc., that idea popped into my head driving home one day. I was living in an apartment in Denver, and Yeah, I kind of instantly knew that had to be the idea, so I actually rushed home and checked online to see if anybody already had Covenhoven.com, and it was available, and so that was when I decided to go full into that. It's just a very meaningful idea and place to me and my family. I wanted to make a record to say thank you to my grandfather, which I did. That was the first Covenhoven record. And yeah, I've just kind of used the name ever since.
Have you focused on different styles over the years? Have you focused on different kinds of songs? And is there a particular kind you especially focus on with Covenhoven?
Yeah, see, I've dipped my feet in a lot of different genres over the years. I was in a punk rock band. I was in an indie rock band. I was in a essentially jam band for a while. I studied jazz, so I got a degree in jazz guitar, but I feel like my roots were always in folk songs and folk stylings and acoustic music. And so I think when I started Covenhoven, I kind of gravitated towards that. And all through all of those different experiences was always writing songs. And so when I left college, it took a few years for me to realize that I probably wasn't going to pursue a life in jazz music, that I was going to continue to write my own songs and take what I learned with me through that. And yeah, just kind of ended up right back where I started, in the living room as a kid, hearing my dad play Bob Dylan songs and that kind of thing. So, but I love a lot of different styles, and I don't like to feel limited. So it's very open. I allow myself to go in a lot of different directions.
And are there any particular methods you come back to in terms of songwriting? Are there any specific processes that you have or anything along those lines?
No, I try to keep myself guessing creatively, and I think if I return to the same thing over and over, then things begin to feel stale, and I'm less excited and interested. So I'm always trying to reshuffle the deck and find new ways and find different ways of writing. Yeah, probably tried most of the common processes. And yeah, I just, there's certain things that I feel like work for me. A lot of times music comes first. Like I'll come up with something that makes me really feel something, and then that informs what the words might end up being. That can be a really useful way to write. But also I'm constantly I have a note on my phone, one of those notes app, just an ongoing note that I just, continually add to, and I'm always on the lookout for phrases and words and interesting ways that things are said, and interesting dialogue just that you hear people saying, or from books, or just whatever. There's a lot of ways to find inspiration, and yeah, I don't know where I heard it, but I think that's just what a songwriter is you're in this constant state of noticing, and that's kind of been maybe the most valuable thing to me. It's just that constant state of noticing.
For sure. And throughout your songwriting career in general, and especially with Covenhoven and just in general, what has kept you coming back to songwriting as a whole?
Great question. I mean, I feel like I ask myself that a lot. And I sort of check in with myself, because doing something artistic to make a living is not easy, and I think it's getting harder as time goes on. And so as the music industry sort of evolves, it feels like it's harder to put food on the table with writing songs and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I love it. I love songs. I love it when a song really comes together. Also songs, I've always been sort of hell-bent on never writing the same song twice. So I'm always trying to use all of the things I have available to me to like go in a new direction every time I write something. And so that freshness or that variety in the way your songs end up feeling just makes it feel new every time you sit down. And yeah, so I just love sort of the act of and the chase required to like write a song. It doesn't always work out, but when it does, it's a pretty great feeling.
And yeah, there's been quite a few releases, of course, from Covenhoven since all of that time has passed. I think you just released is that your fifth record earlier this year?
Yeah, number 5, yep.
Yeah, and I was just randomly curious because I saw some of the promotional stuff that you did, your self-titled debut record, and then The Wild and Free, and then kind of Revelation, and then you kind of promoted it with Roman numerals as the record 1, 2, 3, and you kept 4 as 4. Was there a particular reason for that?
No, I think, I fell in love with that photo that I used on the cover, and that just felt like such a powerful image. I didn't want to muck it up with any kind of text on the front. That was one of the reasons I wanted the name to be very simple. And then, I think naturally a lot of people, including myself, search through the lyrics of a record to try to find the line or the phrase or the word that just feels like it could represent the body of work that album is. And I just didn't feel that when I looked through all the words on that record. For whatever reason, none of it felt like, oh yeah, that's it. And also naming a record is just kind of a tough thing to do, I feel like. And it always feels like it maybe falls short, or maybe you took too big a swing, So it's just it's always been an interesting thing to try to name a record. And so on that one, I just felt like, all right, I'm not gonna. It's my fourth record. It's called Number 4. And I also loved the way that people kind of mistook that as IV. There was a lot of people that would call it that, and I thought that was kind of cool in terms of, the medical IV. It came out right after the pandemic, and it felt very therapeutic for me to make it, and I think a lot of that feel is apparent to people when they listen to it. So, yeah, there you have it.
Amazing. And then, the most recent record, Color of the Dark, Field Notes. Is Field Notes just the previous record with the demo added on? Like, what's kind of the distinction for you between Color of the Dark and...
Well, this kind of goes back to the fact that my touring a lot of times involves adventures, mixed in. I love to camp. I love to explore. And so I have kind of taken it upon myself to try to explore as many national parks and just beautiful, incredible wilderness and outdoor areas that I can get my hands on. And so at this point in, my life and I guess my career as a musician, it's been many years of touring and exploring, and I've really gotten to know a lot of these places all across the West, up into Canada. I feel like I know the West Coast really intimately at this point. I've driven that same run from San Diego all the way up to Canada like 4 or 5 times now at least. So anyway, all that to say that I had the idea that I thought it would be really interesting and fun to re-record the record I just released like a couple weeks prior while I was on my spring tour. And that was a 7-week tour with 30 shows across the West and up into Canada. So I just found little pockets of time and places that I just thought were interesting, and also just tried to be opportunistic about it and very relaxed about it. But I just would set up a mic in random places outdoors, and I re-recorded the record in a very simple way. And so that's why I called it Field Notes. And yeah, it's great. I mean, in terms of the experience, I thought it was really fun and also very low key in terms of I knew that I wasn't going to get amazing sounding audio. So I kind of surrendered to the fact that it was going to be lo-fi. It was going to have noise. It was going to have random sounds and the wind and the ocean, the birds. And, and that's, I think, the charm of something like that is just the raw sort of honesty of it. And a lot of people had been asking me for recordings like that for a few years now. And at some point, I think I might continue doing it. I think Field Notes as an idea and an ongoing idea could be really fun to re-record one of my previous records, or just maybe a group of songs from my previous records and do another release like that. So. And
is that adventure aspect a big reason why you love touring, or just generally performing live, especially as Covenhoven now?
Yeah, I have to say yes to that. Yeah, because that is one of the real perks for me. Not everybody likes to camp, and I do a lot of solo touring, and so the fact that I am alone allows me to do these things because I can just pull over and say, all right, I'm staying here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to be here, and kind of build that into the travel itinerary. And you don't have to worry about overhead costs on a day off, et cetera, if you bring a band with you. So I don't think I'll be able to do this forever, but the fact that I've been solo touring so much has allowed me to do it, and I've just really grown to appreciate that part of it. I've always loved to do it. It's something I've said that I love that aspect of it just as much as I do playing the shows. So I look forward to the days in between as well,
For sure.
I've gotten to see a lot of the world through that, It's been great.
And since you started the Covenhoven project, you've been able to travel to all these places as part of that touring, and you've also been able to distribute your songs and get them out to more people and connect them with more people and have them featured on some television shows as well. You've had songs featured in Flaked, you've had songs in Teen Mom 2, you've had a song in 13 Reasons Why. How did that come about? Did they contact you? Did you reach out in interest of shows? Like, how did those signing into the television contracts for those songs work?
Yeah, I mean, without getting into all the minutia of that, it's essentially just that you make contact with what's called a music supervisor, and those folks are sort of like the gatekeepers of that whole world. They're the ones that make the call on what ends up in a show or a movie or what have you. So yeah, I met a person years ago that was a fan and really into my music and just super supportive and was down to push it into that world. And that's really how that stuff generally happens, is someone's in your corner and that's living in LA or New York and working in that world and like starts going, hey, put this guy's song in there, put this guy's song in there. And I think a lot of that goes on behind the scenes and very little of it actually ends up happening. So it's like, it's like a numbers game and sort of a lot of luck. And so, yeah, that's how it went down. But it's been great. It's been really cool. I've gotten a lot of fans through that medium for sure.
Do you get notified when those songs are used in TV shows? Does your mind get blown when you realize it?
It definitely, like the first couple, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember years ago, like the first couple that happened, it was just like, it felt like really exciting. It was like that scene in That Thing You Do, when they hear their song on the radio and they're just like, oh my God, kind of freaking out. Like that, it did have that kind of energy. After many years and getting a lot of that, I mean, it's always nice, it's always great, but I guess a little bit of that excitement wears off over time. But it's still always very cool. And it's one of the ways I heard a guy coin the term middle-class musician. It's one of the ways that us middle-class musicians are able to make a living still in this world. It used to be something that felt maybe frowned on a little bit, maybe, like over a decade ago, but now it's just so important. It's like one of the last ways that you can actually make money. And so it is a very important aspect of being an independent musician these days.
For sure. But I mean, yeah, over the years that you've developed performing both in a group context and as Covenhoven in a solo context and building all of that up and keeping going on touring and songwriting, and especially with the personal connection that Covenhoven has to you in general, is there anything as a whole that you want people to be able to take away from your shows or your music in general when they come to see a show or listen to one of your records or what have you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just hope that people come away feeling either refreshed or relaxed, not unlike you feel after leaving a movie that you really loved, I think maybe the most important role that music plays in our lives is that feeling of escape and getting to peer into the pool, so to speak, and see like a different life or like another reality. I think that is why I find music so amazing. It just feels like it transports me. When I hear a song that I really love and it just really connects and resonates with me, like I feel transported. And so if anyone's feeling that after a Covenhoven show, then I feel like I've done my job.
And yeah, I'm just trying to think, is there anything else in general about the upcoming show at Gold Hill or any other projects or shows that you want to talk about? I don't know. Just anything else
Sure. Well, yeah. This Gold Hill show, I want to say that I've played Gold Hill in at least 5 times now, maybe more. I feel like I'm sort of deep into the story of Covenhoven and Gold Hill Inn at this point. And the reason I put it that way is because it's just, I love it there. Honestly, it's the one venue I've encountered in all my playing that feels the closest to Covenhoven, the cabin. It actually feels very similar to the cabin in Wyoming. It's the exact same building style. That saloon is like over 100 years old, has a ton of history. The owners are the best. It's a special place, and it's turned into an annual thing for us. And it's always a really lovely night with a roaring fire. And we've done some shows outside as well, and that's always great in their beer garden out back. But it's just kind of become something that I always want to come back to, and I'm always glad to be there. So, and that is cash cover, 21 and up. We're not selling tickets. They just don't sell tickets there. And yeah, very excited about that. And then do have some other shows coming up. And then I'm going to be doing a Southwest tour in early 2026. And then I'm going to be doing my first European tour in the spring of 2026. So I'm excited about that. That's all I can think of at the moment.
I think those are the big questions that I have on my end as well.
Okay, great. Timing wise, I believe it's like 7 o'clock or something usually at Gold Hill Inn. It's a Sunday, so we're probably going to be trying to do like slightly earlier than some of the like Saturday night timing shows that they have there. But yeah, all that stuff will be online. People can just go to covenhoven.com for all the info. But yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you so much, Joel, for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. It was an honor to finally get to interview you and promote your upcoming show. Covenhoven will be performing at the Gold Hill Inn, located at 401 Main Street in Gold Hill, on Sunday, November 16th, 2025, starting at 7 p.m. Tickets are not being sold ahead of time, but there will be a $15 cover charge for the event. To learn more about Joel Van Horne's solo efforts, be sure to head to his website at covenhoven.com. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to this week's Music of the Mountains, Where to Be and What to See, brought to you by the Mountain Ear Podcast. I'll be back at this same time next week with the next Music of the Mountains episode, and we'll be bringing you more segments of the Mountain Ear Podcast in the meantime. Be sure to share this episode of the podcast around with whoever you see fit, and share our podcast around in general. You can listen and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Podchaser, and more. And you can find an archive of all of our episodes by heading to any of those podcast platforms, by heading to our homepage and going to the Mountain Ear Media section, or by heading to our podcast's main hub at the mtnearpodcast.buzzsprout.com. In the Mountain Ear Media section of our homepage, you can also find our Facebook and our YouTube. If you want to follow us on Instagram, be sure to head to @mtn.ear. And once again, if you're interested in being involved in the paper or the podcast in any way, be sure to reach out to info@themountaineer.com, media@themountaineer.com, or frontdesk@themountaineer.com, or call 303-810-5409. Be sure to keep an ear out for the next episode of the Mountain Ear Podcast, and I'll see you very soon. Have a great rest of your day.
I'll disappear into the trees, to parks that no one ever sees. And if you hear the faint bleed in my voice,
The song that you are currently listening to is called See You in the Spring. It's from the 2015 release The Wild and Free from Joel Van Horne under his moniker Covenhoven. This song was featured in the 11th episode titled Tape 6 Side A of the Netflix series 13 Reasons Why. Be sure to keep a very close ear out for the song. It's played as very soft background music during a cafe sequence. Covenhoven will be coming to perform at the Gold Hill Inn, located at 401 Main Street in Gold Hill, on Sunday, November 16th, 2025, starting at 7 p.m. There will be a $15 cover charge for the show. To learn more about Joel Van Horne's solo project, be sure to head to his website at covenhoven.com. And be sure to find his music wherever you get your music, including his latest full-length project, The Color of the Dark, the Outdoors re-recording Field Notes, and his latest single, Aeroplane.
drunk devotion for all that I'll be taking with me by choice. But know that I will sing it loud.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.